The morning air at Adelaide Cottage was unusually quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that makes your skin prickle with unease. Camilla's car pulled up to the stone pathway just after 8 o'clock. She'd made this trip dozens of times before. Always welcomed, always expected. But today, something felt different. The Queen Consort stepped out onto the gravel, her heels clicking softly. She adjusted her coat against the autumn chill and walked toward the entrance with the confidence of someone who belonged there. Adelaide Cottage wasn't just any residence. It was William and Catherine's private sanctuary, away from the cameras and the crowds. A place where their children could just be children. But as Camilla approached the door, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. A royal guard. Tall, unmoving, his expression carved from stone. "Ma'am," he said, his voice firm but respectful. Camilla smiled politely, expecting him to step aside. He didn't. "I'm here to see the princess," she said, her tone casual but tinged with authority. The guard's jaw tightened. His eyes didn't waver. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, ma'am." The words hung in the air like frost. Camilla blinked. "I beg your pardon?" "The princess is sleeping, ma'am," the guard replied, his voice steady. "She left strict instructions. No visitors." For a moment, Camilla stood frozen. This had never happened before. She was family. She was the Queen Consort. Doors opened for her. They always had, but this door remained closed. "I'm sure she didn't mean me," Camilla said, forcing a light laugh. "I'm not a visitor." "I'm with respect, ma'am," the guard interrupted gently. "My orders were clear." Behind him, the cottage sat silent. The curtains were drawn. No movement. No sound. Just the wind rustling through the trees. Camilla felt heat rising to her cheeks. Embarrassment? Anger? She wasn't sure. But she knew one thing: this wasn't an accident. This was intentional. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. She took a breath, trying to maintain composure. When did she give these instructions? "Last night, ma'am." Last night. That meant Catherine knew Camilla was coming. She knew, and she chose to close the door anyway. The guard remained still. A living wall between Camilla and whatever truth lay inside that cottage. "Is everything all right?" Camilla asked, her voice softer now. "Is she well?" The guard's expression didn't change. "The princess requested privacy, ma'am. That's all I can say." Camilla glanced past him, toward the windows. She thought she saw a curtain move, just slightly. Or maybe it was her imagination. Maybe no one was watching at all. But deep down, she knew better. Someone was inside. Someone was awake. And someone had made the decision that Camilla was not welcome. The realization settled over her like a cold blanket. This wasn't about rest. This wasn't about timing. This was a message. "I see," Camilla said quietly. She turned slowly, her mind racing. What had changed? What had she missed? Just days ago, everything seemed fine. The family photos, the public appearances, the carefully crafted smiles. But behind those smiles, something had been brewing. Something she hadn't seen coming as she walked back to her car. The guard remained at his post, silent and unmovable. Camilla slid into the back seat and closed the door. Her driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror, unsure whether to speak. She didn't say a word. She just stared out the window as the car pulled away from Adelaide Cottage. And in that moment, she realized something chilling. This wasn't just about a closed door. This was the beginning of a divide that could change the royal family forever. Asterisk, the car ride back to Clarence's house felt longer than usual. Camilla stared out the window, watching London blur past. But she wasn't really seeing any of it. Her mind was replaying the moment over and over. The guard's face. His words. The finality in his voice. "The princess is sleeping, ma'am." It sounded so simple. So innocent. But Camilla knew better. She'd been in the royal family long enough to understand that nothing was ever simple. Every gesture meant something. Every word carried weight. And that closed door, that carried the weight of a mountain. When she arrived home, Charles was in his study, reviewing papers. He looked up as she entered, immediately noticing the tension in her face. "How did it go?" he asked. Camilla set her purse down carefully. "I didn't see her," Charles frowned.
"What do you mean?"
I was turned away. At the door. By a guard." The words came out sharper than she intended. Charles set his papers aside, giving her his full attention now. Turned away. "That doesn't make sense." He said Catherine was sleeping. That she'd left orders. No visitors. Charles stood up slowly, confusion crossing his face. "But you're not a visitor. You're family. Apparently that distinction doesn't matter anymore." The room fell silent. Charles moved toward her, concern replacing confusion. "Did something happen? Did you two have a disagreement?" Camilla shook her head. "Not that I know of. Everything seemed fine at the last family gathering. We barely spoke, but that's not unusual. She's always been polite." "Polite," Charles repeated, catching the subtle emphasis. "Yes, polite. Never warm. Never close. But never hostile either." Charles ran a hand through his hair, a gesture he made when he was troubled. "There has to be an explanation. Maybe she really was sleeping. Maybe she's unwell? Then why not say that?" Camilla countered. "Why make it about instructions and orders? If she was genuinely ill, the guard would have said so." "This was deliberate, Charles. She knew I was coming, and she chose not to see me." Charles walked to the window, looking out over the gardens. He was silent for a long moment. "I'll speak with William," he finally said. Well, Charles turned, surprised. "No," Camilla's voice was firm. "If you go to William, it becomes a thing. It becomes official. Right now, it's just between Catherine and me. If we pull William into it, if we make it a formal matter, we risk making it worse. But we can't just ignore it. I'm not suggesting we ignore it. I'm suggesting we wait. We watch. We see if this is an isolated incident or the start of something bigger." Charles studied her face. She was holding something back. He could tell. "What are you thinking?" he asked gently. Camilla hesitated. "I'm thinking this isn't about me." "Not really? Then what's it about?" She met his eyes. "It's about you." The words landed like a stone in still water. Charles opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He knew what she meant. Ever since he'd become king, the dynamics had shifted. William was no longer just the heir. He was next in line in a very real, very immediate way. And Catherine? She was the future queen. She had influence now. Power, and power changed people. "Do you think she's asserting herself?" Charles said slowly. "Think she's drawing lines?" Camilla replied. "I think she's making it clear who belongs in her inner circle and who doesn't. And I think she's doing it now, before it becomes harder to do later." Charles sank into his chair. The weight of the realization settling on him. She's protecting her family, yes. But from what? From me? From us? Neither of them had an answer. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. The afternoon light was fading, casting long shadows across the room. Camilla sat down across from Charles. "There's something else." He looked up. "When I was leaving," she said quietly, "I looked back at the cottage, and I swear I saw someone at the window. Just for a second. Watching me leave? Catherine? I don't know. But whoever it was, they wanted to make sure I was gone." The room grew colder, though the fire was still burning. Charles reached across and took Camilla's hand. "We'll figure this out together." But even as he said it, both of them knew the truth. Something had shifted. Something fundamental. And neither of them was sure it could be shifted back. 3 days passed. 3 days of silence? No phone call. No message. No explanation. Camilla tried to carry on as normal. Public appearances. Charity events. Smiling for cameras. But beneath the surface, something gnawed at her. A feeling she couldn't shake. She'd been shut out before. Years ago, when she was the other woman, when the world hated her, when doors literally closed in her face, she thought those days were over, but maybe they weren't. Maybe the door had just been temporarily open, and now it was closing again. On the 4th day, an envelope arrived, hand-delivered. No return address. Camilla opened it in her private sitting room. Inside was a single card, cream-colored, elegant. The handwriting was unmistakable. As it read, "Thank you for understanding. Some things require space. I'm sure you know what I mean." See, Camilla read it 3 times. Each time, the words felt colder. Thank you for understanding, but Camilla didn't understand. That was the problem. Some things require space. Space from what? From whom? I'm sure you know what I mean, but she didn't. Or maybe she did, and that was even worse. Asterisk, she set the card down on the table and stared at it. It sat there like a small white flag. But was it surrender or a warning? That evening, there was a small family dinner. Nothing formal. Just Charles, Camilla, and a few close relatives. William and Catherine weren't expected to attend. The protocol meant they were invited. They didn't come. No surprise there. But what did surprise Camilla was the whisper she overheard in the corridor afterward. 2 staff members, talking in low voices. They didn't see her standing in the shadowed doorway. Did you hear what happened at Adelaide Cottage? The Queen Consort. Yes, everyone's talking about it. I heard the princess personally instructed the guard not to let her in. Said it was non-negotiable. That takes nerve. I mean, she's the Queen Consort. Well, Catherine's going to be queen one day too. Maybe she's just making that clear. Camilla's breath caught. She stepped back, pressing herself against the wall. Her heart hammered in her chest. Everyone was talking about it. The humiliation wasn't just private. It was spreading. Quietly, carefully, but spreading nonetheless. She composed herself and walked past the staff members as if she'd heard nothing. They startled, bowing quickly, their faces flushing. But the damage was done. Later that night, Camilla sat alone in her room. The card from Catherine was still on her desk. She picked it up again, turning it over in her hands. She thought about calling Catherine, demanding answers. But what would that accomplish? It would make her look desperate, weak. No. If Catherine wanted space, Camilla would give her space. But she would also watch. Carefully. The next morning, news broke of a surprise appearance by William and Catherine at a children's hospital. The photos were everywhere. Catherine, radiant and smiling, holding a young patient's hand. William, warm and engaged, laughing with the staff. They looked perfect, united, strong, and notably absent from the coverage. Any mention of Charles or Camilla? It wasn't an accident. These things never were. Camilla showed the article to Charles over breakfast. He read it in silence, his jaw tightening. They're making a statement, he said quietly. Yes, and everyone's hearing it. Charles set the paper down. I need to talk to William. He won't talk, Camilla said. Not really. He'll be polite. He'll say all the right things, but he won't explain. Because this isn't his decision. It's hers. Then I'll talk to her and say what? Why did you close the door on my wife? You can't. It makes you look controlling. It makes us look threatened. We are threatened, Charles said, his voice rising slightly. She's isolating us, drawing a line between their household and ours. Then we need to be smarter about how we respond. Charles leaned back, rubbing his temples. I'm the king, and I can't even resolve a conflict in my own family. Camilla reached across the table, taking his hand. This isn't about you being king. This is about Catherine being a mother, a wife, a future queen. She's protecting her family the only way she knows how. By shutting us out. By making sure we know our place. The words hung heavy between them. Charles looked at his wife, really looked at her. He saw the pain she was trying to hide. The fear, the old wounds being reopened. I won't let her do this to you, he said firmly. You might not have a choice, Camilla replied softly. That afternoon, Camilla received another message. This time, not from Catherine, from William. It was brief, almost curt. We need to talk tomorrow, 2:00. My office. No pleasantries, no explanation. Just a summons. Camilla stared at the message. Her hands trembled slightly. Tomorrow, she would get her answers. But something told her she wasn't going to like what she heard. The meeting was set for Kensington Palace. William's territory. Not neutral ground. Camilla arrived exactly on time. Not early, not late. She dressed carefully elegant but not showy. She wanted to project confidence without arrogance. Strength without aggression. A staff member led her through the corridors. The palace felt different than she remembered. Colder, somehow. More formal, or maybe that was just her nerves. William's office door was open. He stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. He didn't turn when she entered. "Your Majesty," Camilla said, keeping her voice steady. William finally turned. His face was unreadable. "Please, sit." She did. He didn't stay by the window, creating distance between them. Physical, emotional. Camilla felt it like a wall. "Thank you for coming," William said. His tone was polite. Too polite, of course. Silence stretched between them. Camilla waited. She wouldn't be the first to break. Finally, William spoke. "I want to address what happened at Adelaide Cottage. I'd appreciate that." "Catherine has been under enormous stress," he continued. "The children. The public pressure. The expectations. She needs space. She needs boundaries." "I understand that," Camilla said carefully. "But I'm not the public. I'm family." William's jaw tightened. "Are you?" The question hit like a slap. Camilla's breath caught. "I beg your pardon?" William moved away from the window, finally sitting down across from her. His eyes were steady, hard. "My mother died when I was 15 years old," he said quietly. "The whole world watched. They saw me walk behind her coffin. They saw me try to hold it together. But what they didn't see was the years after. The grief, the anger, the confusion." Camilla's heart sank. She knew where this was going. "William, and through all of that," he continued, his voice growing firmer, "there was one person who never had to grieve. One person who got everything she wanted, who became queen, who got my father, who got the happy ending." "That's not fair," Camilla said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Isn't it?" William leaned forward. "You think I've forgotten? You think Catherine has? You think any of us have? I never wanted to replace your mother, but you did," William said sharply. "In my father's life? In the palace? In the history books? You replaced her." Tears stung Camilla's eyes, but she blinked them back. She wouldn't cry, not here, not now. "I loved your father," she said, her voice trembling. "That's all I ever did. I'm sorry if that hurt you. I'm sorry if it's still hurting you. But I can't change the past." "No," William agreed. "You can't. But you can respect the present. By staying away from your family, by understanding that Catherine and I are building something different, something separate. Our children will grow up knowing who their grandmother was. They'll know Diana. They'll honor her. And they won't be confused by competing loyalties." The words were precise, clinical, like he'd rehearsed them. "So what are you saying?" Camilla asked. "That I'm not welcome in their lives." William hesitated. For the first time, his composure cracked slightly. "I'm saying there are boundaries now. Clear ones. Catherine and I have discussed this extensively. We need to protect our family, our children, our future. From me. From complications." Camilla laughed bitterly. "That's a polite word for it." "Camilla, no," she interrupted, standing up. "You've made yourself clear. I'm a complication, an inconvenience, something to be managed and contained." William stood as well. "That's not what I'm saying, isn't it? You're drawing a line, William. You and Catherine? You're saying I'm on one side and you're on the other. And that line? It's the same line the world drew 25 years ago. The same line that made me the villain? I thought we'd moved past that. I thought you'd moved past that." "I have," William said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Have you? Because from where I'm standing, it feels like I'm right back where I started. Shut out, judged, condemned, only this time it's not the press doing it. It's you." The words hung in the air, sharp and painful. William's face softened slightly. "I don't hate you, Camilla. I never have. But you don't accept me either." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Camilla picked up her purse, her hands shaking. Tell Catherine the First received her message loud and clear. I'll stay away from Adelaide Cottage. I'll stay away from your children. I'll stay away from your life. Is that enough space? Or do you need more? Camilla, please. I hope you're happy with your decision, William. I really do. Because once you draw lines like this, they're very hard to erase. She walked to the door, then paused. Without turning back, she spoke one last time. Your mother would have wanted better for you than this. She would have wanted you to be kinder, to forgive, to move forward. Don't, William said, his voice breaking slightly. Don't talk about my mother. Someone needs to, Camilla said softly. Because I don't think you really know what she would have wanted. You only know what you think she would have wanted. And there's a difference. She left before he could respond. The corridor felt impossibly long. Her heels echoed off the marble floors. She kept her head high, her shoulders back, but inside, she was falling apart. Camilla didn't go straight home. She couldn't, not yet. Instead, she had her driver take her to a quiet spot in Hyde Park. She needed air, space, time to think. She walked alone along the paths, her security detail keeping a respectful distance. The autumn leaves crunched beneath her feet. The world around her felt surreal, like she was watching her own life from outside her body. William's words echoed in her mind. Are you family? The question had been simple, brutal, honest, and the worst part. Camilla didn't know the answer anymore. She found a bench overlooking the Serpentine. The water was gray and still. A few ducks paddled by, oblivious to everything. She sat down heavily, suddenly exhausted. The weight of decades pressed down on her shoulders. She'd fought so hard for acceptance. For years, she'd endured the hatred, the headlines, the comparisons to Diana, the labels homewrecker, mistress. The other woman, she'd thought that when she married Charles, when she became queen consort, all of that would finally be behind her, but it wasn't. It would never be, because the royal family didn't forget. And they didn't forgive. Her phone buzzed. Charles *, where are you? His message read, Are you all right? She typed back, I'm fine. Need some time. I'll be home soon. But she wasn't fine. She was anything but fine. Another message came through, this time from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her open it. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. See, Catherine? Camilla stared at the screen. Sorry? Sorry for what, exactly? For shutting the door? For turning William against her? For making her feel like an outsider in her own family? Or was it genuine? A moment of conscience? A crack in the armor? Camilla's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She could respond. She could say something cutting, something honest, something that might make Catherine understand the pain she'd caused. But instead, she deleted the message. She didn't need Catherine's pity. She didn't need her guilt. She needed respect, and that, apparently, was something she would never get. As the sun began to set, Camilla finally stood up. She walked slowly back to where her car was waiting. When she arrived home, Charles was waiting in the drawing room. He stood as soon as she entered, his face tight with worry. What happened? He asked immediately. Camilla removed her coat, taking her time. She needed to find the right words. William made it clear, she finally said. We're not welcome in their lives. Not really. We're tolerated. We're managed. But we're not family. Charles's face darkened. He said that. Not in those exact words. But the meaning was clear enough. Charles began to pace, anger radiating from him. This is unacceptable. I'm the king. I won't have my wife treated like what? Camilla interrupted. Like an outsider? Like someone who doesn't belong? Charles, I've been treated like that for 30 years. This isn't new. It's just more official now. I'll talk to him. I'll make him understand. No, Camilla said firmly. You won't. If you intervene, it becomes about power. About authority. About you forcing your son to accept me. And that will only make things worse. "So what do we do?" Charles asked, his voice breaking slightly. "Just accept it. Just let them push you away?" Camilla moved to him, taking his hands. "We do what we've always done. We carry on. We do our duty. We smile for the cameras. And we accept that some doors will never fully open for us." "It's not right." "No," Camilla agreed. "It's not. But it's reality." Charles pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly. She let herself sink into him, finally allowing the tears to come. They stood like that for a long time, two people holding each other up against a world that still didn't fully accept them. Later that night, as Camilla prepared for bed, she looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked tired, older, worn down by decades of fighting. But she was still here, still standing, and maybe that was enough. She thought about Diana, the ghost that would never fully leave. The woman whose memory would always be more beloved, more perfect than Camilla could ever be. She wondered what Diana would think if she could see all of this. Would she be satisfied? Would she feel vindicated? Or would she be sad that her sons were still, even now, unable to move forward? Camilla would never know. But she did know one thing. She was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of proving herself. Tired of hoping that one day she might be enough. As she climbed into bed, Charles was already asleep. She watched him for a moment, this man she loved, this man she'd sacrificed so much for. Was it worth it? She wanted to say yes. She wanted to believe that love conquered all, that their happiness justified everything. But in the quiet darkness of that room, with the memory of William's cold words still echoing in her mind, she wasn't sure anymore. And that uncertainty was the loneliest feeling in the world, too. 2 weeks passed, then 3, then a month. Camilla and Charles maintained their public duties flawlessly. Charity events, state functions, carefully choreographed appearances. To the outside world, everything seemed normal. But behind the scenes, the distance grew. William and Catherine attended the necessary family gatherings, but they were brief, polite, formal. There were no private dinners, no casual visits, no phone calls just to chat. The line had been drawn, and everyone knew where they stood. Camilla learned to live with it. She had no choice. But then something unexpected happened. It was late November. The palace was preparing for the Christmas season. Decorations were being planned. Guest lists were being finalized, and then Camilla received a letter. Hand-delivered, just like the last one. But this time, when she opened it, she found something different inside. A drawing, done in crayon. Stick figures holding hands. A child's handwriting at the bottom. To Granny Camilla. Love, Charlotte. Camilla's breath caught. She stared at the drawing, her eyes filling with tears. Charlotte, William, and Catherine's daughter. A child she'd barely been allowed to know. Underneath the drawing was a note from Catherine. The handwriting was hesitant, careful. Charlotte drew this after hearing she has a grandmother she doesn't really know. She asked if she could send it to you. I didn't have the heart to say no. I realize I've been unfair. I realize I've let my own fears and loyalties dictate decisions that affect more than just us. I can't promise everything will change overnight, but maybe we could start somewhere. Small steps. For the children, if nothing else. Catherine Camilla read the note 3 times. Her hands trembled. She showed it to Charles that evening. He read it in silence, then looked up at her with cautious hope. What do you want to do? He asked. Camilla thought about it. She thought about the pain, the rejection, the wounds that had been opened. But she also thought about that little girl, Charlotte, who didn't understand adult grudges, who just wanted to know her grandmother. I want to write back, Camilla said quietly, and she did. She wrote a simple note thanking Charlotte for the beautiful drawing. She said it would have a special place in her room. She told her how much she loved the colors she'd chosen. And at the end, she wrote, I hope we can see each other soon. I'd love to hear about your favorite things. Love, Granny Camilla. She sent it off, not knowing if it would change anything. Not knowing if Catherine would even let Charlotte receive it. But 3 days later, another envelope arrived. This time, it was a photo. Charlotte, beaming at the camera, holding Camilla's letter. On the back, Catherine had written, she read it 20 times. Thank you. Slowly, tentatively, something began to shift. It wasn't dramatic. There was no grand reconciliation. No tearful apology. No public statements. Just small moments. Tiny bridges being built. A text from Catherine asking if Camilla would like to see photos from George's school play. An invitation to stop by Adelaide Cottage for tea, with the children present. A phone call from William, brief but cordial, discussing holiday plans. It was fragile, uncertain, like walking on ice that might crack at any moment. But it was something. One afternoon in December, Camilla finally returned to Adelaide Cottage. This time, there was no guard blocking her path. The door opened before she even knocked. Catherine stood there, holding baby Louis on her hip. She looked tired but softer somehow, less guarded. Thank you for coming, Catherine said. Thank you for inviting me. They stood there for a moment, two women who had never quite understood each other, trying to find common ground. The children are excited to see you, Catherine said. Charlotte especially. She's been talking about you all morning. Camilla's heart swelled. I've been looking forward to this. As she stepped inside, she heard little footsteps running down the hall. Charlotte appeared, her face bright with excitement. Granny Camilla. The little girl ran to her, wrapping her arms around Camilla's legs. Camilla bent down, hugging her back, tears streaming down her face. Hello, sweetheart, she whispered. George appeared next, more reserved but curious. William emerged from the other room, watching the scene carefully. His expression was unreadable, but he didn't stop it, and that was enough. They had tea in the garden, despite the cold. The children played. Charlotte showed Camilla her dolls. George talked about football. Louis babbled happily in Catherine's arms. It was ordinary. Beautifully, perfectly ordinary. And for the first time in months, Camilla felt like she belonged. When it was time to leave, Catherine walked her to the door. They stood there, neither quite sure what to say. I'm sorry, Catherine finally said, for how I handled things. I was protecting my family, but I did it poorly. I hurt you. That wasn't right. Camilla nodded slowly. I understand why you did it. I may not agree with all of it, but I understand. Can we try again? Catherine asked. Start over. Camilla smiled sadly. We can't start over. Too much has happened. But maybe we can start from here. Move forward. I'd like that. But they didn't hug. They weren't there yet. But they shook hands. And in that gesture, there was respect, understanding, a fragile truce. As Camilla's car pulled away, she looked back at the cottage. Catherine stood in the doorway, waving. Charlotte was beside her, jumping up and down enthusiastically. And in the window, barely visible, was William. Watching, Camilla didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if this peace would last. Families were complicated. Royal families, even more so. But for now, the door was open. And that was a start. As they drove through the gates, Camilla realized something. She'd spent decades trying to prove she belonged. Trying to earn her place, trying to be accepted, but maybe belonging wasn't something you could force. Maybe it was something that grew slowly, quietly, in unexpected moments. In a child's drawing, in a sincere apology, in a willingness to try. It wasn't a perfect ending. It wasn't the fairy tale she'd once imagined, but it was real, and maybe that was better. The car turned onto the main road and Adelaide Cottage disappeared from view. But this time, Camilla knew she could come back, and that made all the difference.